Hi everyone, it's your girl Dr. Tommy, better known as Ama Abasa. Welcome to the Wellness and Wahala podcast. And if you're new, Wahala in Nigerian Pidgin English means issues and problems. And today we have a special guest, Miss Krystal Gayle. She has a master's in public health, and she's also a subject matter expert in tribal health disparity issues. And also tomorrow, February 20th, is United Nations World Social Justice Day. So she'll be talking about social justice issues as it relates to the tribes, the American Native Indians and Alaskan Natives. And the theme for this World Social Justice Day is closing the inequality gaps to achieve social justice. So over to you, Krystal. Thank you for joining the Wellness and Wahala podcast chat today.
No problem. Good afternoon, Dr. Tommy, and I appreciate you having me on as your guest for your wonderful podcast. And I think it's great that you're bringing awareness to the social justice issues and celebrating the World Social Justice Day. Like you mentioned, my name is Krystal Gayle, and I have worked in tribal health within the last 4 years, 2 years supporting a tribe within the Great Plains area, doing some grant support and grant management work.
Okay, nice.
And the other 2 years, last 2 years, I've been working for a tribal nation, a firm for a tribal nation, and working in specifically issues management and in diplomacy issues centered in public health.
Nice.
So to go further, you mentioned to introduce some of the social justice issues that face Native Americans today.
Yeah, and disparities.
I can start talking about a background or overview of the American Indians and Alaskan Natives. Currently, there's about 573 federally recognized tribes in the United States, in 35 states, and American Indians and Alaskan Native people, they actually experience more poor health outcomes than other Americans. It's estimated that 5.2 million people, 5.2 million Native Americans in the United States self-identify as American Indians and Alaskan Natives, and that is about 1.7% of the total population. Okay. Numerous tribes have been overall declined in population due to historic events of disease and forced migration and various other cultural genocide as well. The life expectancy of American Indians and Alaskan Natives is actually 5.5 years less than all the races in the United States population.
Wow.
So that kind of gives you a glimpse of the disparity amongst this population.
That's a big difference.
Absolutely. 5 years is a major difference on lifespan and quality of life. Some of those specific conditions that plague the American Indian and Alaskan Native communities include chronic liver disease, cirrhosis, diabetes, unintentional injuries and homicide, high suicide rates, chronic lower respiratory diseases as well, and heart diseases as well. Nearly half of the American Indians and Alaskan Natives that live on reservations or designated tribal lands in the West, the largest populations in those areas come from Arizona, California, Oklahoma, New Mexico, in those particular states. So going into further discussion of social justice issues, the main social justice issues that face the American Indian and Alaskan Native communities are racism, structural racism, and colonialism due to federal policies that were enacted during the 1800s, 1700s, and in the past.
That's a shame. And this is their land. Because they're Native American Indians. So what would be your advice, and a call to action to address, this racism and colonialism, going on with the Native American Indians here in the U.S., like in the Alaskan Natives. It doesn't make any sense. This is shocking. Like the shocking facts that you're dropping, they're very enlightening. But I'm like, wow.
Yeah, it's like the structural racism and colonialism issues they face and plague numerous tribes globally, as of course you know, Dr. Tomey.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a United States issue. I think it's important to love one another, but more specifically to learn about each other's culture. So educate ourselves, read about different populations, backgrounds, not just for a day or a special month, like, there's Black History Month in America, but I think on an individual level, it's important that we get to understand our fellow man, because we are all human beings. We all bleed the same color, blood.
Exactly.
Same color. So I think it's important for humanity to understand one another, and read that education and have that education of why certain conditions are unequal, and how those unequal conditions and those rights that we all are supposed to have in the United States, why they don't actually play out in things like education and healthcare. These things that have major determinants amongst our health overall as a population. Also, I would say within the structural racism and colonialism that I touched on before, as I said before, education as well as sexism, that is also a social justice issue that tribes face.
Mm-hmm.
They face high homicide rates within their tribal, American indigenous women, and that may not get as much media coverage, but it's actually occurring.
Wow.
In significant rates, and there are numerous advocacy and policy groups that are working their hearts out to face these issues. So it's important to read different news materials, get informed, and advocate and support those particular organizations that are on the front line to fight these issues that they face as well.
Wow, that is some shocking statistics, and it makes me think similar to like the apartheid, the colonialism and the racism in South Africa, and how the native South Africans were treated badly by the colonizers. And this is 2020, and we have Native American Indians being treated like this, and living pretty much like refugees in their own nation. So is really, really sad. But moving forward, in this World Social Justice Day tomorrow, and just as a global citizen, what do you think people can do to make a difference? Because education, my mom always says, is this African proverb of education is the only answer to inequality and poverty. And you have educated us, you've dropped the statistic, you've empowered us, enlightened us, and we need to love one another and raise our voices. So what do you think should be the call to action moving forward?
Thank you, Tommy, for that question. I agree with what you just said previously. It's important that we raise our voices, and that we all have the power to raise specific issues to our local congressmen, to our Senate and federal government leadership. It's important that we address the issues that are important to us, and that we look at the similarities across cultures rather than the differences. I think in this current climate that we're in, we tend to focus on the differences and try to those differences to pinpoint against one another, but we're more alike than we are different within cultures. Specifically within an American Indian and Alaskan Native communities, they value family and community, and that community and family is a part of their resilience to stay strong despite all the horrific forced migration, their communities being basically devastated due to the old historic federal laws. So I feel like it's important for us to raise our voices, notify our congressmen and officials, and I think amongst each other, it's important to respect one another's values, show empathy, have empathy, because what's going on with one community can actually occur in your current community as well. So it's important to look at the similarities instead of the differences, because we're more alike than we are different. And then I would say that's on an individual level. And then I would say on a federal level, to close the gaps where we could raise our voices as a community, is to mention or discuss the importance of law changes. In order for conditions to be improved in this country, laws have to be changed, because we all know that the U.S. Constitution is a doctrine that determines a lot of values, behaviors, and systems in this country. So I would say specifically there were 3 laws in the past that impacted American Indians that set the tone for modern day reservations. That particular law was the Indian Appropriation Act of 1851. And then another law was a general allotment law, also called the Dawes Act. And that basically detribalized all the American Indians and destroyed their communal lands.
Wow.
And that set up the tone for a lot of the loss of their land. And there's federal trust that is tied to the federal government, and it causes a lot of, I would say, dependence on the federal government, the way the Constitution is currently written. So it's important to understand what's in the current Constitution. Some of these things, a lot of, I would say, citizens assume things were changed, but a lot of the prehistoric 1800 laws are still written. It's actually still written in the Constitution that American Indians are known as domestic dependent nations.
Wow.
So very similar to the way a guard and a warden and a guardian or a prisoner is, that relationship dynamic. So certain land rights and decisions it has to get approved through the Bureau of Indian Affairs before they have access to certain things or operate and make changes to certain things on their own land. So it's important to be aware of these laws, and as well as news events, understanding why certain news events come up and bubble up, such as the water issues and gas and oil and energy and pipeline issues that were going on in the out west. So it's important to understand why the tribal communities are angry about certain things that are happening because of certain rights and laws that are in the United States Constitution.
Wow, that is, very, very shocking. And, I like that the use of technology now, nobody has an excuse. You can email your senator, your House of Representative, and Congress, research on this issue. You've dropped a lot of major facts that we can contact our representative and say, look, this land grabbing laws, that are outdated in the 1800s, they need to be reconsidered. Especially these are the indigenous, these are the real Americans of the land, and they're pretty much being treated like second-class citizens. So thank you for that call to action. I think it is extremely important. And then also I will ask a call to action for people to continue to educate themselves. I went to the CDC Museum in November. They had the Native American Heritage Month, and they launched the Changing Winds Public Health Indian County exhibit, which was very educational, and just a lot of their traditions and the customs is very similar to the African traditions, and just to learn more historically of the Native Americans and the Alaskan Native Indians and their impact in America, and the disparities and social justice that they experience, just like you said, but how we can raise our voice. Nobody is small. And to leave everybody with the Wellness Wahala African proverb of the week, it says, if you think you are too small to make a difference, you haven't spent a night with a mosquito. Especially African mosquitoes. Any mosquitoes, they carry malaria and everything. So mosquitoes are powerful, but more importantly, each and every one of us are even more powerful than mosquitoes. So if you think you are too small to make a difference, you haven't spent a night with a mosquito. Nobody is too small to make a difference. And thank you once again, Krystal, Gayle, for giving us all these educational insights into tribal health disparities here in the U.S. and for World Social Justice Day. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you so much, Dr. Tommy. It was fun.
Thank you. And I'm wishing everybody no wahala this week. Thank you.